Today, we're going to dive into a topic that touches every single corner of South Dakota, often in ways that we just don't see. We're going to break down the landscape of hunger right here in the state, using real data to understand what's actually going on.
So let's start with just one number, 113,750. That's it. That's the number of people in South Dakota who are facing hunger. You know, this isn't some abstract problem. It's a daily reality for our neighbors in every community all across the state.
And when you dig into that number a little bit, the story gets even more urgent. 1 in 5 of those people is a child. Just think about that. That means thousands and thousands of kids are trying to get through a school day on an empty stomach, which puts their health, their well-being, their whole future at risk.
All right, to really get a handle on this, here's how we're going to walk through it. We'll start with the sheer scale of hunger, then we'll define what food insecurity actually means. After that, we'll look at its ripple effect, explore how folks are bridging the meal gap, and finally, we'll face the ongoing challenge that remains.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the scale of hunger. We're going to go way beyond those headline numbers to see how this issue is really playing out on the ground.
So, this chart right here tells a really important story. Hunger isn't the same everywhere. I mean, it exists in every single county, but the severity can be worlds apart. Take a look. In Hanson County, the food insecurity rate is about 8.5%. But then you look at Ogallala, Lakota County, and it's over 28%. That is more than 3 times higher.
And a lot of times, these huge gaps are driven by challenges that are pretty unique to rural communities. Things like a lack of transportation to get to a grocery store, jobs that just don't pay a living wage, or even underemployment, where you have a job but not enough hours to make ends meet. All these things create massive barriers for families.
So we've seen the numbers, but what does a term like food insecurity actually mean for a person day in and day out? In this next part, let's move away from the stats for a second and try to understand the human side of this.
Well, to really solve a problem, you have to know what you're talking about, right? The USDA defines food insecurity as a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life. And that little phrase, consistent access, is everything. It's not just about not having food today. It's about the instability, the not knowing if you'll have enough tomorrow.
And that lack of consistency, it leads to just impossible choices. This quote from the source material just hits so hard. Parents skip meals so their kids can eat. Seniors choose medications over food. I mean, wow. It shows you that this isn't just about feeling hungry. It's about the constant, gut-wrenching stress of having to make these kinds of trade-offs.
And you know, the scary part is this can happen to absolutely anyone. For so many families, food insecurity isn't some permanent state. It's situational. A single missed paycheck, a car that suddenly breaks down, an unexpected medical bill, that's all it can take to knock a family from being stable right into a crisis.
While the struggle feels individual, the impact is felt by the entire community. So in our next section, let's explore hunger's ripple effect and see how this issue really does affect all of us.
The effects are just devastating, but they look a little different depending on your age. For kids, not having enough nutritious food makes it incredibly hard to focus in school, to learn, to just be a kid. For adults, it can actually lead to serious long-term health problems like chronic diseases. It's a problem that damages both our present and our future.
And here's the trap. Once that cycle of a poor diet leading to poor health gets started, man, it is incredibly difficult to break free from. It sets off this domino effect that can follow families for generations, impacting everything from health to education to financial stability.
Okay, so that brings us to a really critical part of this whole story. Let's shift our focus from the problem to the response. We're going to look at bridging the meal gap and see exactly how South Dakota is taking action.
The first thing to understand is that no single group can solve this on their own. It absolutely takes a partnership. You know, charitable programs like food banks are crucial. They're on the front lines. But government assistance is also totally necessary to fill in the rest of that gap. So let's look at one of the biggest federal programs, SNAP. The scale here is pretty significant. In South Dakota, almost half, nearly 46% of all households getting SNAP benefits have kids. And check out this number. The program puts over $121 million in food assistance out into the state every year. But the impact of that $121 million, it goes way, way beyond the checkout line at the grocery store. To really see how, let's just focus on a single dollar of those SNAP benefits.
Because here's the amazing part.
That $1 has its own ripple effect. For every single dollar from SNAP that gets spent, economists figure it generates about $1.70 in local economic activity. That money goes right back into the community, to grocers, to farmers, to truck drivers. It's not just aid, it's actually an economic engine.
Which brings us to our final section, an ongoing challenge. Because even with all these amazing programs and community efforts, there is still a really long road ahead.
To get a feel for the size of the gap we still need to close, think about this number, $3.51. That's what Feeding America calculates as the average cost of just one meal in South Dakota.
So you take that cost, and you multiply it by all the meals that are missed by every food-insecure household over an entire year, and you get this, a staggering figure. People facing hunger in South Dakota need an estimated $75 million more per year just to cover their basic food needs. That's the meal gap we still have to fill.
And this really brings us right back to the core idea of this whole explainer, which the source material puts just perfectly. When our communities, especially children, have access to healthy diets, everyone benefits. See, this isn't just about helping one person or one family, it's about making the entire community stronger.
So I'll just leave you with the question on this final slide. When a community is fed, who truly benefits? As we've seen from all the data and the ripple effects, the answer is pretty simple. Everyone does. Thanks so much for joining us.